Okay, today we're going to introduce how to use Memsource now as a phrase to translate files. We're going to introduce some basic functions. For tomorrow's seminar, we're going to introduce how to make use of translation memory and term base. The first thing I want to explain is that Memsource is changed to phrase translation management system, but it is still a web-based translation tool, which means that the files for translation memories, term bases, and all the data in the project will be stored in the cloud. So it is still cloud-based. This reduces the risk of data loss and means that files can be worked from any device. So Memsource interface is very clear and easy to use. As it is stated on the website, the change is part of the unification of our products into the phrase localization suite. So users can still log in and access the existing and unchanged phrase TMS account through the new website. Inside the application, the only changes made are about terminology, such as the rename of Memsource translate to phrase translate, and its UI interface also is updated to the TMS, and the CAT editor is also updated. Phrase translation management system supports over 500 languages, and it can process more than 2 billion words every month. And there are more than 200,000 users worldwide. It has a few distinguished features. For example, the translation workflow is automatic. It can reduce turnaround time with advanced automation workflows, and it can reduce translation costs. Post-editing of machine-translated content will be much cheaper than human translation output. Also, it can leverage a fully featured CAT tool for translators. For example, in-context previews ensure more accurate translations. The editor pane is very easy to operate. Also, it has real-time check to help translators use terminology in a consistent way, and this terminology will be defined and stored in the term base. Furthermore, all translations will be stored in a translation memory to avoid repetition of the translation of the same work. To begin with, this is the interface. If we want to create a new project, we can find here is a plus sign on the upper right corner. We simply click it. It will generate a wizard. So we go through this create a project wizard to set the properties of the project first. For example, we need to give it a name. I named here as seminar test. The source language, English, target language, Chinese, traditional Chinese. Then we have to look at the settings. There are few paths. For example, machine translation engine, pre-translation, project status automation. After project is created, we should create a new job. Similar, there is a button beside the jobs. We click it. Then we try to import a file prepared beforehand. This file is imported and the name will be shown here. And we have to tick pre-translate, then click create. If desired, we can specify the import settings here that we want. Of course, it is for more advanced users. And then a new job is created. We can find its basic information here. The name is Seminar Test. Tag language is Chinese, and it was created by me. And the machine translation engine is selected as default, phrase translate. I didn't change anything yet at this stage. And the jobs, I created one job just now. The name is the same as a file I just imported into the project. And there is a number for it. Why? Because it's only job in this project. And we can find that there are translation memories and term bases. So before we could start any translation, we should make sure that a translation memory is selected. If not, we can use this wizard to create new ones if we want. For example, let's create a new translation memory. First, we need to give name to it and name it as test for seminar. Source language, English. Tag language, it is selected as Chinese, traditional Chinese, and create. So a new translation memories will be created. The new translation memory will be empty, but as we walk on, it will be filled up with content. You can do the same to create a new term base. And then we can select the new translation memory we just created. And the name of term base we just created. This part is a setting is about the pre-translation. Usually I will leave it as a default. So pre-translation is initial application of non-translatable translation memories, machine translation, or even human translation engines against a source text before it is presented to us in the edit. So this step will be applied first. And pre-translation settings can be set at a project level in general settings when create a new project. Yeah, we just set it at the project level. And they also can be set individually for different job by the pre-translate button in the job table. For example, this is about lock function of translation memory matches. So what kind of situation will lead the lock of some fragments? For example, if it is over 101% translation memory matches, or it is 100% translation memory matches. So pre-translating content from translation memory and the locking of high score matches, such as context matches, will prevent unwanted changes in the translation memory. It will be locked as it is recorded in the translation memory. So we would like to explain what is the context match of the translation memory. So we're working with 101% matches from our translation memory. The previous and the following segments provide context that can be saved with each segment. So the context is used to determine if the match in transmission memory is 101%. And 100% match means in context match. So the source text is a match, but the context of it will be different. It's a new context with the same source text. This slight difference will be significant when the segment's context results in two different translations of the same arranged text. For example, in the female project manager will be translated differently than a male project manager. So the same term will be translated differently, depends on the context, to give us the information about whether it is a female project manager or male project manager. So surrounding segments create context can be used to identify the difference. If both of the contexts are the same, it will be presented as 101 match because the context and the subtext are the same. This pane is called assurance. We can find that there are a lot of settings factors we can choose. Usually I will leave it as default. But college assurance is a feature built into the edit. We can find it under tools from the list run job QA. We can also press a shortcut F9 to trigger it. It detects translation errors by comparing source and target segments, checking the term base, the spelling, the tag, content, and so on. So it assists translators in detecting formal errors and improving translation quality and consistency. So I think that I got 2 questions from participants. Let me address them after I finish the introduction. The QA warnings for segments with potential problems are displayed in this pane. In the edit, for example, in the edit on the right side. So QA can be performed instantly upon segment confirmation or manually. For example, here is another button, instant QA. It can be performed manually. We can press it. This is a QA pane. You can find lots of warning are given here. So when attempting to confirm a segment, instant QA check is run on that segment. In the case of an issue, a yellow warning triangle will be displayed instead of a green check, which means you have to clear this warning first. And then the QA pane with warning will be opened if you click it. So we have to mitigate all issues or set forth positive warnings here to ignore in order to confirm the segment so we can move on to the next segment. Also, in this edit pane, we can find here is a resources status. It will be shown when you move mouse over these buttons. It can give you information about which translation memory is selected, which term base is used, and which machine translation engine is selected. And we can find that from this edit pane, some content is already pre-translated, right? And there are some scores given. We're going to introduce what are these scores? What do they mean? The Cat Web Editor is a web-based translation workbench. We do not need to install anything, but we must have internet connection to use it. If we want to open a file, we double-click it on the project screen. The particular file has been pre-translated. In other words, this is a rough machine translation version. It has been inserted in this window, so we can work on it directly. Now, for these scores, phrase calculates a similarity score for all potential matches from the translation memory. These are listed for each segment. For example, the first one is 100%. It was generated automatically by machine translation engine. The CAT results are displayed in the following order, and they are color-coded. If it is green, it means the best translation memory or some non-translatable match based on the score. If it's yellow, it is determined one of the record from term-based, so it is term-based items. And if there is one term that is preferred, it will be placed at the top. Sometimes we can find the color is orange. It is based on translation memory or non-translatable or some other MTQE based on scores. If it is blue, it is machine translated result. Pink is a sub-segment from the translation memory. Now, we can find that there are a lot of red signs like this, right? It means unconfirmed segment. So in order to move forward, we need to confirm segment first. Therefore, all segments, unless it is locked by a project manager that no one can do anything to it, in a job must be confirmed before it can be set as complete. So all the red cross should be changed to green tick before we can complete a job. The confirmation of segments can be performed via keyboard shortcut through the menu or just click on the red cross in the table. To confirm a segment, we can follow the following steps. First, we find segments that are presented as unconfirmed. And if it is confirmed in a previous workflow step, it will be changed to a green check mark. And then we have to check to review it by clicking, and then the matches will be presented in the CAT pen. Then we can type, revise, review the content to make it accurate. And then we can either accept it or change it. Then if the translation is satisfying, we can confirm that we accept it. Then we confirm the segment. So a green check will be displayed once it is presented as confirmed. But if we start editing it again, it will remove confirmation status away from the segment. It will become red cross again if we try to start editing it again, try to correct some mistakes or make it better. The confirmation status of the green check will be changed again. Okay, I'm reviewing the others. Okay. In the previous slide, I mentioned that we have to edit some segment before we can accept it, right? So in the edit window, we can type in our translation or make a direct change to the content of it. If finish one segment, it will send translation to the translation memory and move us to the next segment. And it will then be checked against the translation memory and the term base. Sometimes segment is not as what we want it to be. We have to join some segments, or in some cases, we have to split a long segment into two. So segments can not to be joined or split if we don't have the adenoids. This is a first condition. But if we have it, we can join it or split it. So to join a segment with next one, we could select the segment and click join. These two segments will be joined together. See, the first segment is, but how hot is up to us. Some devastating impacts of global warming are now unavoidable, right? I click the first segment, and here is the button from the home ribbon, join. I click it. This segment will be joined together with the next one. And then we can find on this tab, these two segments are joined together. And notice that the translation of them also are joined together. There is a symbol J to indicate these two segments are joined together. So are the translations. Similarly, we can split segments. If it is too long, we want it to be segmented into two parts. For example, in this segment, we can notice that there is one conditional clause, though there is the short window to prevent the most harrowing future. A major new United Nations scientific report has conducted. If we want to separate it into two parts, we place a cursor at this point in the source segment, and then we click split here. Also, on the home ribbon, split. Then the translation of the orange segment will not be automatically split. For example, on the window below, we can find that though there is still a short window to prevent the most harrowing until concluded, is separated from the segment, right? We did split into two from this point. However, the translation of this segment is the same. In this tab, there is no translation. The translation of it cannot be inserted automatically. That requires our human intervention. We have to type it in or simply copy and paste translation of this newly generated segment. And to join files, we mentioned that in our project, we just create one job to demonstrate how to create a new job, right? However, sometimes there are more than one file in one project. But if we want to split it or join them together, pay attention that this procedure cannot be undone. But if we join them together, this group of files can be viewed together in the editor, even if they are joined. Joining files can be useful if a number of small related jobs with the same target and source language are being worked on together, and preferably if they are on the same topic, they can be joined together. So this is a project interface. We can find two jobs. Actually, there are three, but I only want to join the job number 2 and job number 3. So you can go to this table, select them first, select the files we want to join them, and we click on the file name, one of them. Then both jobs will be open together in the editor, in the phrase editor. But they will be separated with a bar indicate that the job number 3, and the file name, which means that these two files are joined. Okay, so before we end today's seminar, I would like you to help us give us some feedback. Simply scan this QR code. And to answer questions I just received, the first one, begin with Chinese. Second, how does translation memory work to translate text? And what does 1% context do with translation? 1%, 0%, you. Sorry. How does translation memory work to translate text? Say when we demonstrate this exercise, I import some files into here. This is a file we're supposed to work on, right? And after it was imported into the project, you can find that some translation is already given, right? So this part, this translation could be said as partly done by our machine translation engine. And also the translation result will be saved to translation memory if we have saved it. So later on, if we have a similar word file, the record of the translation memory will be reflected by this pre-translated content. Some of the text will be translated beforehand against our translated memory. So there is a score to indicate if they can find similar content in our translation memory. As for the second, what does percent? I think what you mean is 100%, 101%, right? But this is a match of the record of our translation memory. So luckily we get one fragment that is exactly as the real record in our translation memory. It will be 100% match. And if we get even lucky, the context of this fragment is the same. So we have the same text, we have the same context, and the score will be 101%. Like the example demonstrates, sometimes the term is the same or a translation of this is the same, but the context is different. We can only give 100%. It is only 100% match because the context is different. And we can find that in translation memory, the threshold could be adjusted if I want or more content be translated automatically or pre-processed before I start translating. I can set it at a lower threshold. I can set it at 60%, which means anything that is scored over 60% will be presented in the editor window for me to work on. So I'll have a larger portion of content be translated beforehand. So we don't have to start translating everything from scratch, right? But if we want to be more accurate, I would like to set it at a higher threshold, like 90%. So we have to do more job manually. We have to decide if the pre-translation threshold is raised to 90%, a lot of content will be checked manually, right? Okay, I hope this answered the question. Any more questions? And in tonight's workshop, we would like to import files ourselves and walk through these steps one by one to create a project, jobs, and try the settings to take a look at the pre-translated content produced by our machine translation machine. Okay, any more questions? Okay, so to summarize today, we introduce how to create a new project to set up the settings, name, source language, target language, and then under it, create a job and create a machine translation engine selected and select pre-translate. So the machine translation can do some rough translation before we actually translate the content. And then we got to select or create translation memory and term base before we start our translation. And the pre-translation part can be set as default. We also introduce a different context match against translation memory, quality assurance pane to help us check some warnings like the misspelling, tag content, and some segments that haven't been confirmed. In the editor window of our CAT web edit, then the machine translation match scores. What does it mean? What do they mean? And we have to confirm segments before we move forward. And then how to edit segments, join segments or split segments. Join file